Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So the Associated Press just reported something that every American needs to see. They need to hear this, they need to understand it. They conducted a study where they reviewed the income of 341 executives who work for companies listed in the S&P 500. And so they looked at their gross income. They looked, their findings were about their income in 2023. So in 2023, those CEOs made on average 200 times more than their employees, not just 200 times across the board. That was the average. So some of them were making like 500, 600% more. Or 600 times more, I should say, 500, 600 times more. And the AP reported that the CEO's pay in 2023 increased on average 13%. So while government corporate shills, while right-wing media is out there whining about employees making a tiny fraction more, just a tiny bit more, trying to help them deal with inflation, keeping food on the table for their families. The people at the top were raking in hundreds of times more. In fact, the AP said that according to their annual survey, about 24 CEOs that they reviewed received a pay increase last year of 50% or more. It's unreal. How does that translate into increased prices for all of us? Does anybody ever ask that? You know, compare that to the measly 4.1% average pay increase for American employees. And I want to show this graph that you're seeing here on your screen for those listening on the podcast. What we're looking at, this is a graph of the top earners. And so if you scroll over the bubbles, you'll see a pop-up window for each one, and it shows how much each of these greedy bastards are making. So for example, right off to the right, it says Hak Tan. That is the name of the highest paid executive. So if you hover over that bubble, it shows he makes almost $162 million a year. Obscene. That is 510 times more than the median income for the employees at his company, which is Broadcom Inc. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you are working 7 days a week, which I've done for several years now on this show. No one works hard enough or long enough to justify $162 million a year. I also think it's insane that actors, that pro athletes make crazy money like that. Not when we have teachers, firefighters, police officers, people who, some of them literally risk their lives every day on the job. And, you know, single parents working multiple jobs who can still barely keep a roof over their families' heads. And here's why I really wanted to cover this story and why I wanted to share it with all of you, and more importantly, why I hope that you will share it with everyone you know. The wealthy ass clowns who pay off our politicians to do their bidding, and the ones who benefit from these tax loopholes that are left in place by those politicians that they pay off, they're the ones who are helping to push out false narratives about what a burden it is to have to increase the average pay, you know, for average Americans, the minimum wage to a living wage. And here's the thing, it's working. Their lies, their crocodile tears are actually fooling some people in this country into thinking we should all make less. We just can't burden the system like this. While these rich, lazy CEOs sit in their cushy air-conditioned offices and never lift a finger. While they go play golf, while they go take lunch with their fellow greedy SOBs who are also making hundreds of times more than the people who actually make money for their companies, the workers. Now, I know this bogus message is breaking through because I've had conversations with several people who have bought into this hook, line, and sinker. The people who pay the least attention to news and politics are repeating lies sold by the elites. A perfect example was the other day I was talking with someone about my show, and I was sharing with her, last month, the month of May, for a multitude of reasons, it was just a bad month financially for Raw News and Politics. For some reason, revenue on this show just dropped off a cliff. Her response was so shocking to me. She said it was because worker pay, or she posited, maybe it's because workers' pay went up so much. People can't afford it now. What? People are making more money, so they can't afford to donate as much? That was the logic. And my second thought was, why is there never any outrage or concern about CEO pay? Right? Why does no one ever bring that up and go, hey, maybe if this guy wasn't making almost $200 million a year, they could afford to drop the price on their services or on their products. No one ever brings that up, right? It's always the worker's fault. And then, if you look at this chart that I shared earlier, they also shared, in addition to this Hawk Tan, his obscene, ridiculous income, they reported other people who were also just so out of line. I mean, this guy named William Lansing, he works for Fair Isaac Corporation. He makes $65.3 million a year. A CEO named Hamid Mohammed or Mohammadam, something like that. Anyway, he makes $50.9 million, almost $51 million a year. The CEO of Netflix, he makes $49.8 million a year. And there were some overpaid CEOs that they didn't even include in this list who make way, way more because their income doesn't qualify for this list that they put together based on the AP's methodology. So for example, they said like Elon Musk, his compensation package has an estimated value of about $45 billion. Now, a great deal of that is awarded in stock. So because he hasn't cashed it out and for several other reasons, his income isn't considered to be, or it's not considered to be income. It's not compensation. And then the AP cites the pay gap between workers and CEOs as one of the reasons why people view the economy so poorly, why they think it's bad, why they think it's rigged, and they're not wrong. They are absolutely not wrong. And the gap keeps getting wider. They pointed out that up until the 1980s, CEOs were making 40 to 50 times the average worker's pay. So it still wasn't fair back then, but it is completely and totally out of control now. And again, people are falling for this fairy tale. They are falling for the story that these people are pushing so that we will all try to hold each other down, average Americans, right? That, inflation is high because workers have received a minuscule increase in pay. So please spread the word, tell people the truth. Inflation is high for many reasons. Workers making a living wage is not one of them. So maybe we need to start pointing the finger at the people at the top who seriously could not spend all of the money they're making in several lifetimes. And when you point this out to people, because I had another conversation several months back with someone who was so upset because, one of the Senate candidates was talking about $50 minimum wage. That's what we should raise it to. And she was saying, it's so insane and blah, blah, blah. It's all it's going to do is increase prices. And I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't be paying the CEOs like tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe we need to look at their pay and consider lowering that so that we can get the cost of goods down. And there was just like this blank stare from her. She had no clue how to react to that. You could tell she had not even thought about it. And it was like so out of left field. I mean, it was like I was speaking a foreign language. But, you know, depending on your source of news, depending on where you fall on the political spectrum, what shows you're watching, yeah, you may have never in your life considered that there are people at the top who are exploiting workers and running away with the whole bank, like getting away with financial murder and then blaming it on the workers when, God forbid, you know, they ask for a little bit more, a few more scraps to help them get through the month. So it's sickening. It's sickening, but the propaganda is working. So again, share this, let everybody know. It needs to change, or the country is, you know, this is how we end up with Donald Trump. Because we end up with an electorate, we end up with voters who just want to blow the whole thing up. And if they're not paying that much attention, they don't realize Donald Trump is no different than these greedy CEOs at the top of the heap, at the top of the pyramid. They think he is one of them and he is going to change things for them and that he actually cares. This is the problem. And as I was saying, you know, I do a hangout with supporters of the show every month. And I was saying on the hangout last Saturday, our electorate, our voters are, it's sad to say, but it's kind of like every 4 years, you're starting with people who have amnesia because you've got a new subset, you've got a new young group, you know, a new generation who is now old enough to vote. And they don't remember everything that happened before. They were in middle school when Donald Trump was in office, or, you know, late elementary school. I mean, their issues back then, what they were worried about was, you know, gee, do you think Jimmy likes me? You know, I'm going to pass him a note during, you know, PE class and have him check the box, you know, yes or no. I mean, that's where they were. And now they're voting and they don't have a clue what Donald Trump was like. So we have to explain to people, you know, it's almost like they're all like Drew Barrymore in 50 First States. It's like they have no idea what came before this, but we're all sitting there horrified, like, oh my God, you know, you missed a lot. And it wasn't good. Anyway, I will let you all know when I hear more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.